Good morning to everybody. My name is Pietro and I work as technical evangelist in Microsoft. In the last years I have been working with Windows Azure, is the cloud platform that we have in Microsoft. This session is about a new service that we added to the platform, that are virtual machine, and that not strictly related to Eclipse, but is also used for Java developers. And then I will introduce a cloud service that is our deployment model for Windows Azure. And at the end, I will show you the latest version of the Eclipse plugin that we have to deploy into our cloud services solution. So, what is Windows Azure? How many of you have heard before about Windows Azure? Okay. Not confused with the blue, Windows Blue, that's another story, okay? Same color, but quite same color, different story. Windows Azure is a Microsoft Cloud Platform, is thought to be flexible because we can host from small site inside Windows Azure, small web services to big scaling enterprise application, and it is easy to scale from small one to bigger one solution. It also open because you can build solution inside Windows Azure, not only with our classical web technology, but you can also use other technology like, for example, Java. And we also have plugin, open source plugin for Eclipse. We have different SDK that are also available on GitHub with the Apache 2 license. And they are for Mac, they are for Linux. So we have a lot of platforms that we support inside Windows Azure. It's also solid because when you think some of the services inside Windows Azure, we don't see that services right now because I have too small time to show you. But most of the services are redundant. So when you think, for example, to a file system in the cloud, you see a logical file system, but instead, inside the Windows Azure, we have 3 different copies of this of the services, so that are replicated from the infrastructure itself, and so they give you the high availability. The common question is, what's Windows Azure? Windows Azure is a series of data center and CDN, content delivery or distribution network, that we have inside around the globe. We have 2 data centers in Europe, 2 in Asia, and 4 data centers in the US, plus a lot of CDN spread around the world. There is a different kind of model when you pay for Windows Azure. It's not free services, even if we have some free service inside Windows Azure. What you pay in Windows Azure is only what you consume. For example, if you spin up a VM inside Windows Azure and you use this VM for 2 hours, you are billed only for these 2 hours. So you can use, for example, for tests only. You can create a large, big 58 gigs of RAM VM inside Windows Azure and pay only for the time that you really use. And virtual machine is one of the services that we have recently added to our platform, and this is why I want to present here today. I want to present because you can run inside the virtual machine Windows Server and also Linux machine. So I know that some guy that use Java used Linux for running their project. So I see a lot of customers that are adopting this kind of technology. We also have a flexible workload support because you can connect different virtual machines inside Windows Azure. We have a load balancer, and the requests that coming outside are spread to the different VM that you had to the Windows Azure private network. I can show you very briefly how you can interact with a VM inside Windows Azure. This is the Windows Azure portal, and you can see from the left there are a lot of services here. These are the virtual machine, the new one that we added. I can create a VM right here. Quick create. I have to add a VM name Eclipse. And as you can see, there is a DNS that is created for us. You can select which operating system do you prefer. the size of the operating system, the VM, sorry. So for example, 1 core with less than 2 gig of RAM, I can add a username, password. And then you can choose in which region, which data center you want to put this VM. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to create, so I don't want to stay here to wait for the time. I have another VM that is already created, and when you created the VM, you have a dashboard where you can see all information from the VM, like the CPU percentage, utilization, disk, etc. You can connect using RDP connection for Windows, or if you are creating a VM inside Windows Azure and the operating system is Linux, you can use the SSH protocol to connect. Once you are connected to the VM inside, you are inside our data center. The VM now is your responsibility. I mean, you can install here whenever you want, and which software you want. You can install. This is a single Windows Server image with nothing installed about the default. You can install software here, and then create an image that you can reuse, for example, because you won't create more VM with the same software installed. There is a difference between a VM created here and a VM that you can host inside other cloud computer vendor, or if you are running a VM inside your laptop, for example. I can try to explain with the slides. First of all, one of the concepts that we want to provide with our VM is portability. We want, for example, let you to create your VM or reuse your VM that you have in your infrastructure and upload to the Windows Azure. And you can, of course, download the VM from Windows Azure and use it locally, or if you are other service provider that run the same virtualization stack, you can, for example, switch and use another service provider to host your VM. So at the end, what we want to provide you is a no lock-in on our platform. So after you are creating a VM inside Windows Azure, you are free to move or delete or whatever. Another important feature of VM is the persistent drive. When you are creating something inside Windows Azure, you create in the virtual machine file, for example, for hosting your VM. The data are created, were triplicated. We have a storage, a Windows Azure storage, and so there are 3 copies on 3 different hard drives inside the data center. When one of these hard drives failure for whatever reason, Windows Azure is automatically responsible to spin up another drive and create another copy. So at the end, you have always-on, reliable VM that you can host inside Windows Azure. There is another feature that is enabled by default. That is the continuous storage replication. So when you create inside the data center, a single data center VM, after about 10 minutes, the VM is copied to another data center far away from the first one. So in the case of one data center will, let's say, disappear from the earth, you have your data in another data center. If both data center will aspire to, I don't know, probably we have other problems to solve. But anyway, there is another service that we provide inside Windows Azure. The first one is the VM that we have seen just right now, and the other one is cloud service. With the first one, you have seen that you are responsible of all the code that you install in the VM. You are responsible to make the patch of the software, monitor what was happening inside the VM, etc. Cloud services is a different approach. Is what is called a platform as a service approach, instead of the first one, it is infrastructure as a service approach for the cloud computing. Cloud service allow you to create a very big infrastructure of services with can scale from small to very, very large installation and support a very rich multi-tier infrastructure. So you can, for example, create a web application that loosely coupled can communicate with another component inside the Windows Azure. And also, all the management staff are responsible for all the management staff are inside the Windows Azure infrastructure, are not about your something that you have to deal with. How does it look, the development lifecycle? Suppose that you are working with your Eclipse in your local machine. After the end, you can create a package that is basically a zip file that is uploaded inside the Windows Azure. And what happens inside Windows Azure? Inside Windows Azure, there is a provisioning stage first, and for some VM are spin up inside our data center. I say VM, but are very different from the VM that we have seen before. This kind of VM are responsible for hosting your code, but you can connect directly, or you can for debugging, but not because you want, let's say, really change something inside the code itself. Then when the machine with your code are spinned up, network load balancing is also available and automatically configured inside the Windows Azure. So it's not something that you have deal with. You don't have to call my colleague in India and say, hey, help me to manage this load balancing. You have something that you can do by yourself inside the Windows Azure portal that you have seen before. In case of hardware failure, for example, what's happening inside the Windows Azure is that the package that you have created for the first time and you put inside the Windows Azure are automatically taken and used for create another service for you. So you have at the end of the game your solution that's always available. So the main thing here with the cloud services, is that you have a model where you can focus on your application. You are dealing with the code of the application. You don't have to deal with all the infrastructure stuff. You don't have to manage all the infrastructure things that are necessary in a traditional data center to make your application work. Is from a developer point of view. And here I can introduce you the plugin for Eclipse. That is something that we have recently updated. This plugin for Eclipse give the possibility to use all your Java code, all your application server, like Tomcat, Glassfix, and so on, inside the Windows Azure Cloud Service Platform. Also give you the possibility to use sticky session, collocation of some caching, collocated caching, that is a feature inside Azure. And also we have an SDK for the Windows Azure. The SDK, everyone have an SDK for something. We have an SDK for all the API that we allow in the cloud services environment. And from this plugin, you can work with this SDK to work with low-level API inside the Windows Azure Cloud Services. This plugin is created by Microsoft Open Technology. It's an open source project under the Apache V2 license. For those of you that doesn't know what is Microsoft Technology, it is a subsidiary inside Microsoft that is responsible for all the open source project that we have inside Microsoft, and also responsible for working with the community of open source in, all over the world. And there are a lot of Italians that are working there. And okay, I can show you something. This is Eclipse, of course. I have installed a simple, very simple JSP page that writes some hello world, and also I have created this, installed the plugin for Eclipse that give me this project that allow me to wrap all the solution that you have created before for creating the zip package that you have seen in the slides. And after that, you can have access to an emulator environment. This environment allows you to test the solution as it will work inside the Windows Azure Cloud Service before you can deploy. And for example, if I click here, the project is compiled. all the SDK and the Windows Azure emulator are spin up. Okay. It takes less than a minute to start. I also have a solution that uses Tomcat here, so my application server is also running inside the solution. And now here, this is the Windows Azure Compute emulator, where I can, for example, try to test my solution with different instances. There are some projects that can emulate how the solution will work inside a multi-tier application inside the Azure. And now I can, for example, go to my localhost port, and this is a Tomcat that is running inside the Windows Azure emulator. And I can also go to here, and this is the JSP simple page that is running inside the emulator. After you have completed all your tests, you can deploy it inside the Windows Azure. And at the end, you have the same result inside the Windows Azure data center. This is a real URL, Eclipse Day 2013.cloudapp.net. That is the same installation that I have locally, but I have already deployed inside the Windows Azure. And here the same page. Okay, so you can start using cloud service developing locally. You can use a plugin for Eclipse to emulate the environment that you have inside Windows Azure. In case you want to use this second model that I present you, that give you more flexibility in terms of scaling of your application, but is require you to work with some new API that we provide you. And that's all of the story. After all, you can manage all the services from here, and this is the service that I have deployed. I can monitoring the situation here. I have a production and a staging environment, so I can swap within the staging and production from here. Okay. Whoops. Windows Azure is a lot of building block. I present you some of these blocks that I expect to be more interesting for all of you. And I encourage you every way to look to the other one for database, storage, traffic, identity, messaging. So you can choose whatever you want based on your needs. If you want to start using Windows Azure, you can download the Eclipse plugin from this link. And also you can create a Windows Azure account, a trial account for 90 days using this link. So it's all for me. Thank you for your attention. And